Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Sher, and it's time to square off. We have lots to talk about this week as we welcome our special panel, Bryan Nehman, Ruth Norton, Bob Scherr, and Chris Kennedy. And I want to thank Howard Mallison and Jimmy Mathis for filling in for me last week, getting over laryngitis, getting over COVID, and getting over all of you. Well, for the second time this week, a resolution condemning Hamas and anti-Semitism excuse me, was voted down by the Baltimore City Council. Monday, the council also voted no. Thursday, 4 of the council members who abstained Monday introduced their own resolution condemning not just anti-Semitism, but Islamophobia and all the forms of hate. It also failed again. 5 yeses, 7 noes. And Bryan, this was a big topic on your show with C4. Take it away.
It absolutely has been. It's amazing to me that we couldn't pass this. I mean, it's a simple resolution saying Hamas is bad, anti-Semitism is bad, the attacks on October 7th were bad, and we couldn't get 9 members of the city council to say, yes, thumbs up to bad people. And instead, it becomes not only just local news, big news, but it becomes national news. The Baltimore City Council can't pass a resolution. It's absurd. It was essentially the exact same resolution that was written to condemn the attacks in New Zealand on a mosque that killed like 50 Muslims. Yitzi Schleifer, the councilman who is Jewish, replaced New Zealand with Israel and Muslims with Jews, and that passed. Right. This one could.
I mean, how can we not condemn terrorism? How can we not condemn hate of all people? I think that's just a very simple premise, and it should be a core value of being a Baltimorean, a city that is so diverse in its population. And if we cannot find common ground to condemn hate in general and terrorism in general, I'm not sure what is the civic fabric that ties us together.
To be honest with you, I don't understand this world anymore. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand the 3 college presidents that go before Congress and say that it depends on the context whether or not I want to ban anti-Semitism. I just want to mention this. I thought that the congresswoman that questioned those presidents was terrific, but I would have asked 1 or 2 more questions. When they said it depends on the context, I would have said, well, you give me a context that works for you where it's okay to support the beheading of babies and raping of women. Give me the context that you think that that's appropriate. You know, the way these questions are asked, such as the city council, that's how it should have been worded. Not, are you opposed to Hamas? Are you opposed to beheading babies and raping women and crossing borders and killing 1,400 people? Yes or no? That's how it ought to be asked.
Chris,
I think it's just bias and bigotry and hatred and terrorism is what in general of all people, right?
Chris.
Yeah, you know, the scariest thing to me here is this is a very rare situation where you have the far left and the far right that have both lost touch with reality on the same issue for diametrically opposed reasons, okay? The far left is being brainwashed by online content driven by China, Iran, and Russia to think that anything that supports Israel is a vote against a 2-state solution, and it's a vote against Palestinians. And I think some of that theme may have been responsible for this ridiculous measure not passing in the city council. The far right is pushing for autocracy over democracy. It's 1930s Germany. It's horrible. The fact that there is anti-Semitism being propagated by the far left and the far right, again, for different reasons, is just horrible and scary in this day and age.
Bryan, this really lit up your phones that morning. Were you surprised?
That it lit up the phones? No, because I mean, it's such a common sense thing to do to say, yes, we're going to pass this resolution, because why wouldn't you do it? Which just, I hear what Chris is saying, but I got to tell you, and I'm not a Trump fan. I think everybody knows that. But, you know, when Trump was in office and we had the thing down in Charlottesville, all we heard about is how, you know, the anti-Semitism from the right, from the right, from the right. Well, where have we seen the anti-Semitism since the attacks on October 7th? It's all from the left. It's all from the left. It's all on college campuses. It's the intellectuals. It is the protest group, the professional protest group on a regular basis, members of Congress. That's where it's coming from. And what is so just fascinating to me is that supporting Hamas and even supporting the Palestinian cause is illiberal. By that I mean, what do you expect out of the Muslim world, out of a Palestinian state? You're going to get controlled by male cisgenders. Women will be subjected to basically be under the power of men. LGBT community will not be welcomed whatsoever. There will be no democracy. There will be no higher education. There'll be none of these things that liberals all push and stand for. They would be gone under that kind of power. So why do they support this? They're backwards. They're backwards.
They're being brainwashed.
Now, I mean, don't forget that early on in this, Trump's made a statement in support of Hezbollah. I mean, the craziness of this and the lack of being able to think about core civility boggles my mind here on all sides of this. I think Christopher's right. I mean, it's coming from all sides. Much of it's so ill-informed, so crazily ill-informed. I was having breakfast last week by myself at last Sunday, and I had a waitress who was whispering to other folks working about a protest at City Hall, right? And talking about how the Holocaust never existed. And I just wanted to jump over the breakfast counter and say, please know your history, regardless of what your point of view is going to be. Know your history, know the facts, and we have got to have a compact in this world of what are the common, decent places from which we are going to come. You know, no one, I don't think anyone on this screen wants to see anyone die unnecessarily at all, from bombings, from shootings, from, no one here, I am positive, wants to see Palestinians die in this war who are innocent from this. But we have got to be able, in the same breath, to say that there is no place for terrorism, there's no place for oppression, and there's no place for bigotry.
What surprises me is how stupid people are. And that's what it boils down to, especially on college campuses. I would call
it ill-informed.
I call it stupid. As if I'm a parent today with college age kids, I don't understand how you can send your kid to Harvard if you can afford it, or to any of these Ivy League schools, or college at all. These college kids who are protesting, and if you ever seen CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever, when they interview these kids and ask them, what are they protesting? They have no idea. What they'll say is, well, we're sick and tired of seeing an occupied Palestine.
Right.
All right. Take that phrase. Number one, there is no such thing as Palestine. And number two, it's not occupied. Israel hasn't had anything to do with it in the last 15 years. The stupidity, and this is what the professors in these schools are teaching.
You know,
you want to send your kid to Harvard and pay $50,000 a semester? That's the education your kid gets.
You know, online education, formally and informally, has been a scary event. And I think it's been made worse by the pandemic, where people, stuck to themselves for a year or two and started learning in a way that they thought was correct, and have become very stubborn in their thoughts. After the show, if you go Google the TikTok issue, whether it's really being pushed by China with the help of Iran and Russia with this false narrative to create conflict in a democracy and make it easier to push in Hungarian and Turkish autocracy, you will see a plethora of articles by persons under the age of 25 that are fighting back against that TikTok narrative, saying that Nikki Haley was wrong to say that TikTok should be shut down, and really aggressively creating a factual narrative that looks credible when you read these articles, but has a gravamen factual base that is completely flawed.
All right, let me say something. The heated debate at City Council, to his credit, President Nick Mosby saying it is disgraceful that we're having this discussion. Some saying the back and forth by the council sends the wrong message about Baltimore. A couple of more minutes on this and we move on.
I think that was my point, Richard, and maybe Brian's point and others. What does it mean to be a citizen of Baltimore in terms of common value? Good community has some common value and norms. You can be pro-Palestinian and not want to kill Jews and not want to hate other people and not endorse terrorism. You can be pro-Israeli and do the same. It is about what are the boundaries of civil society here.
All right. Final word. Go ahead, Brian.
Just want to say, I mean, I'm willing to have a nuanced conversation about it, but when you don't denounce Hamas and you can't say what happened on October 7th was wrong and terrible, then I'm done with you. I don't want to even have a conversation. And the thing about it is, Ryan Dorsey, for example, who is, the liberal progressive city council member, he, in his first time in office, put a resolution in against the rhetoric of Donald Trump in 2016. The rhetoric of Donald Trump. Yet he could not vote for a resolution condemning Hamas and the events on October 7th. So Ryan Dorsey is against rhetoric, but he's okay with rape. Does that make any sense whatsoever? I mean, don't come to me and talk about how we can bring people together. If you can't tell me Hamas is wrong, what happened on October 7th is wrong, then I don't want to talk to you. I don't.
Okay.
And the
Brian,
killing of
Brian,
the Muslims in New Zealand is also
context.
wrong. Right?
Short break. Here is the voice of Square Off, Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Rich. I'm sure you've seen some of the Barry Glazer TV commercials. They're different.
Oh, yeah.
They get your attention. They also get results. That's why Barry Glazer and his team, including an in-house doctor, make no apologies for getting every penny they can from the insurance companies. So when it comes to personal injury or medical malpractice, there's only one choice. Barry Glazer at 410-547-8568. And there's a lot of diners in Baltimore, and Richard and I were at the Double T Diner a couple of weeks ago, and
Yes,
John, who owns the Double T Diner, is without a doubt one of the nicest, sweetest guys you'll ever meet in your life. And he's done a phenomenal job in making Double T totally terrific. TT, totally terrific. They've got a great menu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The Double T Diner's got desserts that are fantastic. You can't describe it. They have locations all over the place at Route 40, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. They own By the Docks in Middle River, and they have Monday night lobster specials. It's all in the Double T family. So go to Double T. Back to you, Rich.
Thanks, Howard. Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates has thrown the powers of his office at a mother, father, and their 15-year-old son, who was armed with a handgun, for taking their son up to Carter Votek High School on October 27th. Their son was armed with a handgun. The three charged now with assaulting a 15-year-old student, pistol whipping him. Their son ran off, got into an argument with another student who pulled his gun. The two started shooting at each other. Three of them were hit. None injuries were life-threatening. But how about this? How about these parents, Bob?
Well, it's refreshing to see a state's attorney that wants to prosecute. It really is, after we've had years of not having that. I should be surprised by this scenario, but I'm not. Baltimore is crime infested. The juvenile justice system in Baltimore stinks. Criminals are not taken off the street and left in jail. We do not have, we have a shortage of police officers to enforce the law here. It's a mess, but I was very happy to see Ivan Bates take a stand and let criminals know that their parents have responsibility also.
I
Chris,
think Baltimore is
Yeah.
gun infested.
You know,
right?
Richard, I know Bryan has covered this story in great detail with Bates, and I'd like to hear from him too on this. But there's a lot of statistics about bad crime in Baltimore, and here's a statistic that I'd like to throw out there. When Bates took office, the prosecutors in his gun violence division each had a caseload of 106 cases each. Okay, now I've been a litigator for a third of a century. Bob's been doing it longer. Anybody who has a caseload of 106 cases doesn't know what they're doing. They can't manage that. It's malpractice waiting to happen. Those caseloads need to be reduced by 2/3 or at least half, but it's going to take a long time for Bates to do that because that office was in such disarray with such low morale and mass exodus that he's trying to rebuild the thing. And as he likes to liken it to rebuilding the Orioles, that's not something you can do overnight. So it could get worse before it gets better. But that gun violence division has to get addressed with the caseload of those prosecutors, because those people will not get prosecuted and they will not get put in jail until that number gets fixed.
how about the parents driving their kid to school knowing he's armed and getting involved in the assault?
Well, I'm
They-
pleased.
right.
I'm pleased to see this, Richard. Only because, I mean, the parents have responsibility here. They have influence, and if they know they will be held account to what they are doing by third party, right, through their children, I think it changes the scenario. It's what happened in Michigan, right? There was a kid who took the gun to school, shot people, and the parents are now getting prosecuted on that, or were prosecuted. I think we have to go after the ecosystem. That I didn't mean to jump in front of you, Bryan, or
No,
anyone else.
That's perfect. Look, you can't win in a city if you've got parents who are driving their kid to school with a gun and then helping assault other children. I mean, you can't. There's not enough wraparound services in the world to fix that. So it starts at home. There is a strong message that is being sent. I give the mayor credit because he's been saying it for quite some time as well. But until it actually happens, we're in a world of hurt trying to get out of it. To Chris's point about Ivan Bates, he was on our show this week. We talked to him for about 20, 25 minutes, and he's going to try to go after parents as much as he possibly can. Look, this was a slam dunk. I mean, they've got the parents on camera driving the kid to school, out there actually physically assaulting the other kid. The father had been arrested at least 10 times, probably should have been in jail, but was out because of COVID, which is kind of another stupid story that we can talk about another time. So it's like, that's easy. The hard one is going to be other cases where, all right, where did the kid get the gun? Did he get it from mom? Did he get it from dad? Did he get it from his brother? Those are the ones that are going to be hard for Ivan Bates to get. He seems to be willing to try and do that and to be aggressive from a prosecutor's perspective. And to Bob's point, it's a lot different than what Marilyn Mosby was doing.
Well, I was a prosecutor in the 70s in Baltimore City, and I didn't have that kind of a caseload. And our state's attorney's office did not have the number of prosecutors that they have now. So how could that be? Well, the difference is because there are more criminals in Baltimore City, even though the population has gone down since when I was a prosecutor in the 70s. So what is going on? Why is it the way it is? It's because the same criminals are back on the street time after time after time. So something is wrong. They are not staying in jail long enough. They're not getting tough sentences. But I think the real problem is in the juvenile justice system. All right. These kids are tried as juveniles. And believe me, 17-year-olds today should not be considered juveniles as far as committing crimes. They're committing adult crimes and getting tried in juvenile court and being released at age 21. There is something wrong. In my day, when I was a prosecutor, if you committed a crime from age 16 on, you were considered an adult. They raised the age of juvenile jurisdiction from 16 to 18. That means more of them are being tried in juvenile court, and it's a mistake. It really is, because when they then become an adult and they commit their next robbery, it might be their third, but because two of them were in juvenile court, they're considered first offenders, even though it's their third one. There's something wrong with the system.
And Bob, you said many years ago in Square Off, because you've been on for like 35 years,
Yeah.
you said, if you do the crime, you do the time, no matter what your age is.
I agree with
How do you
that.
feel, Ruth Ann?
You know, I just think about the plethora of guns, though, comparative as well, Bob, to when you may have been a prosecutor, and the sheer volume of guns. And then we just got blocked in this state from being able to have any test, any way to certify for people owning guns. The courts overturned our mechanisms to try to limit and stem the flow of guns. But, you know, and it's not whether a parent is actually giving the gun to their child, but if they know a child has a gun, right? Someone under the age of 18 or 21 who has a gun, who hasn't gone through a proper certification to have a gun, they should have a duty to report, but they certainly become liable and culpable, in my view, if they do that. And then to participate in that crime, I think it puts the parents, there should be a stronger set of prosecution there as well. I mean, I just think the state of the tools for crime are much higher too today. So we need more prosecutors. We certainly need lower caseloads.
You know, the interesting thing is, I'm not so sure that this scenario is that unusual. I'm really not. You know, for all the number of bad juveniles on the streets in Baltimore City, and the gangs, the criminals, they all have parents. And I am sure a lot of those parents are not law-abiding citizens. Okay, the only difference is the publicity that this case got, and the fact that the parents actually drove with the kid makes it a little bit different. But I'm not sure the facts are that unusual in Baltimore City as well as other big cities.
Chris,
Yeah,
I hate to
yeah.
cut you off.
Yeah,
Got to take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump, who says he is going to be a dictator for one day. Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. Trying to get on. Wait a minute. Here it comes.
Whoa.
Oh. For fine dining, special occasions especially, because I just had a Baltimore City College reunion at Pappas. Pappas has a lot of reunions there, family parties and things like that. It's a great place for it. They have a huge room in the back at their location in the Cockeysville area, and in the new Bel Air location as well. But they're a great sports bar and great restaurants, great place to go watch the Ravens, and also enjoy the famous Pappas crab cake, which Richard calls Richard?
Fab Cakes.
The Fab Cake, which is Oprah's favorite. One of the many delicious choices on the Pappas menu. Plus, Pappas ships their crab cakes all over the country with 4 locations, like I said, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air. Make sure you get the family to Pappas. Also, Leading Edge Auto Body and Mechanical Repair want you to know that the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. Richard and his family have been taking their cars to Leading Edge for years. They work on all makes and models. They offer free pickup anywhere in the Baltimore area. Call Leading Edge at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Back to you, Rich.
Great. Jeff is great. The guys are great. Bryan, just a quick note. I congratulate UNC4. Your recent ratings are showing a rise, and that's good. Okay? Congratulations.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. We appreciate anyone listen.
All right. Former President Donald Trump, in his interview with Sean Hannity, vows to seek retribution for what he argues are politically motivated prosecutions against him, targeting his rivals, referring to them as vermin. And while I have you there, Bryan, what are your thoughts?
Well, Trump just can't help himself. I mean, that's been the story of the man's life, probably, but certainly his political career. The answer, of course, would have been like, no, I'm not going to be a dictator. But, he can't help himself. He does it. He'll claim it's a joke, and maybe it was a joke, but a lot of people are going to see it. The thing about Trump that's fascinating to me is that his rise in the polls, especially in the Republican primary. I mean, he's killing it. He doesn't say anything. It's right. The less he says, the higher his poll numbers go. And why is that? It's because, well, you don't hear all of this stuff, and he doesn't pick at scabs and things like that. So he's leading. He's probably going to be the Republican nominee. But I got to tell you, what's going to happen next year. The Democrats are going to spend literally going to spend $1 billion on negative ads and to go after Trump and everything that he has said and January 6th and all of these things. I just think that, he can't help himself, and he will say things that will ultimately probably cost him a chance to become the president of the United States.
Kennedy.
Yeah, Richard, there's some scary stuff coming out of his mouth, and he just gets scarier every day about the abusing of the power. I mean, this is a guy with a shipwrecked conscience. And if you haven't read about the MAGA Red Caesar plan, then go read about that if you want to get the hell scared out of you. But his 3-part plan is in place. 1, try to win to stay out of jail. 2, try to win to wrongly make money again off the presidency. And 3, abuse power and build an autocracy, like I said before, similar to Hungary and Turkey, under the guise of being a democracy. The problem is the 70 million people that support him. And the best way I can sum that up is the bee can't teach the fly that honey tastes better than feces, okay? Thus is the case with Donald Trump's base of supporters. They simply don't get it, and they don't want to vote for Joe Biden, and they're not motivated yet to stay at home. The only hope to me is the DC federal prosecution case that he gets convicted, hopefully.
Don't count on it, Chris. Don't count on it. Those trials are not going to take place, none of them, prior to this election. I see it. I'm one of the 70 million that voted for Trump. I voted for him twice. I will never vote for him again. I had enough of him after January the 6th. I had enough of him when, after he lost, he went into Georgia to campaign for the 2 Republican senators, and all he did was talk about himself, and those 2 senators lost, and it cost the Republicans the majority. It's a crazy world now. Could you ever imagine a situation where a president has 90 felony charges against him? 90, not 1. That would destroy anybody. 90. And the more he gets indicted, the higher his poll numbers are. So when you're shocked, Bryan, that people just can't condemn Hamas, put the 2 together, and this is the mentality we're dealing with in this world today.
Ruth,
it's just exhausting to think that we are even discussing this despicable, horrible human being who is telegraphing his crimes that he hopes to commit if he occupies 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue again. Why we cannot, whether there is a deep state or not a deep state that is for him or against him, why in the world our system of justice cannot take this down, why we can't find the common sense. And thank you, Bob, for acknowledging that you won't vote for Donald Trump again. But it is just crazy. And we've spent years trying to figure out how we lost this part of the population. We've tried to diagnose this in different ways, but the Republican Party has to have some sense of decorum here to say no to putting this man on the ballot who is saying that I'm going to go use resources of the federal government to go after journalists, to go after enemies. That is a crime. He's stating it in clear day, saying he's going to do it. in addition to not only the 90 indictments, but the decades and decades of graft that he has clearly put upon the public in the United States. He needs to go to jail. We need to jail him before the election if we have to. I have faith that the public in the United States will not reelect him, and that there are more Bob Scherrs who say, not this time.
Hey, Bryan.
Can you imagine the people that he's going to have working in his administration? I mean, think about it. Who his attorney general is going to be, who his secretary of state's going to be. They're going to have to be loyalists. They're going to have to be people that will do anything that he asks. And retribution's the only thing he's running on, and it's winning. I just don't understand it. And the only one as bad as him is Joe Biden. I've never seen an election where there are two horrible candidates.
Richard,
Chris,
It's a different world.
I want to have a steak dinner bet with Bob. Okay. I don't know, Bob, if you've been in front of Judge Chutkan. I have. Okay. I will bet you a steak dinner at any restaurant in the region that there will be that trial. Okay. And he will, I'm going to also throw this in. He will get convicted in that case. And here's why. It's a stream
prior to the election?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, Bob. Yes. The trial is happening in March. I'll bet you just on that. Okay. It is a streamlined case that has been well thought out by 100 prosecutors that have been working on this case for years. It is a 4-count indictment. It is undisputed law, and it does not rely upon any top secret documents. That's the key thing, unlike the Florida case, to get it delayed. There will be no delays, okay? The DC appeals court is not going to delay it. The only chance he has is some sua sponte thing where he somehow gets Thomas and Alito to get 2 other people to grant cert and grab the case away from a federal trial court, which would be the first time in history that has happened. It's not going to happen. The man is going to trial in March, and he will be convicted before Easter.
And he will pardon himself after he wins the election.
Not going to win the election.
Bryan, go ahead. 30 seconds.
First of all, it was telling when Hannity asked the question to Trump, he was trying to get him to say, you would do that, right? Expecting Trump to say no. And then Trump said yes. What the reaction was from the audience was actually cheers. It wasn't laughter, it was cheers. So, when Ruth Ann talks about the Republican Party, well, this is what the Republican Party wants. I mean, the voters of the Republican Party want Donald Trump. I mean, they made it clear in the polls. Now, we'll see what happens at the primary. To Chris's point, can you imagine? I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and scare people about what's going to happen in 2024, but boy, it is going to be a historic year. Because can you imagine if Trump is convicted and he is jailed and he is taken off the ballot in some states and people don't have a chance to vote for the Republican nominee or they see him in jail? I mean,
riots. There'll be riots.
How people are going to react to that. I'm just saying that. Boy, we are on a collision course with a constitutional crisis.
Nikki Haley better be ready to go.
Do you think they'd slide over to Nikki Haley, Bryan?
No, I don't. I think there's so many loyalists to Trump that they will be so angry, and if he's not the nominee and it's taken away from him because he's either convicted or they say that we're not going to allow him to be that, they're not going to vote. They're just not going to show up. And
I think they will. I think they will slide over to Nikki Haley because she will beat Joe Biden. Haley will beat Joe Biden.
Way out of time. Thank you all for watching. Great show. Congratulations to Taylor Swift. She is the Time Magazine Person of the Year. The second runner-up, first runner-up, Howard, the voice of Squirrel.
I voted for Howard.
Good for you. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bryan. Thank you, Chris, Ruth Ann. See you later. See you next week.
Swifties. Go Swifties.
We square.
Okay. Thank you.
Square off. Bye-bye.